Today we're doing 5 drift cars for under £2,000. Nice cheap cars that can get you into drifting, so stay tuned and see what makes the list. Yo guys, welcome back to Leadfoot TV. So I haven't done one of these videos for a while, and as you can see I'm in a bit of a different environment. I can't film from inside my car. I might have put up a video explaining why I can't do that. So yeah, today I am at work. I'm staying over tonight, so I thought I'd use the opportunity to film one of these videos. I haven't filmed one in quite a long time, and they always seem to go down pretty well. So yeah, today we're doing 5 drift cars that you can buy for under £2,000, and I am fully aware that I do not drift. I don't professionally drift. I haven't ever done a drift day. The only drifting I've ever done has been illegally. So.
But let's keep that on the down low. It's not exactly street legal.
Basically, I asked for help on this video because obviously my opinion on entry-level drift cars isn't that valuable. So I ended up messaging quite a few people. So I messaged a few friends that are just like big into drifting, and I actually messaged some people that I know that drift professionally, and they got in contact with a few of their friends that drift professionally, and together we all collaborated to bring you this list of 5 drift cars that you can buy for under £2,000. So the idea of the list is yeah, just a nice cheap budget drift car that can get you into drifting, and you can basically learn the basics and smash it to bits, and it doesn't really matter too much because yeah, it's £2,000 and not a £10,000 Nissan 200SX. So yeah, let's get to it and see what made the list.
You're representing me now. What you think? I'm gonna let you roll in a Hyundai?
So number 5 on my list is not a very obvious choice, and I'd be very surprised if you've actually seen one drifting over here in the UK, but it is the Vauxhall or Opel Omega, depending where you are. It's a very popular car to drift in Europe, not so much over here. They're getting quite hard to find, especially the V6 ones, so they're not the easiest things to find, but if you can find one, they are cheap. So yeah, if you can get a V6 Omega with a manual gearbox, you're winning. I actually had to play with one of these in a car park that had a welded diff, and it was surprisingly easy to drift. Obviously, with it having a V6 in it, it was quite torquey, and yeah, it was easy to get the wheels spinning. So yeah, number 5 on my list is the Vauxhall Omega. So number 4 on my list is the Lexus IS200. There were a few people I asked that didn't agree with this car being on the list, basically because it's quite underpowered. It comes with a 2-litre inline-6 engine in it, which only produces around about 140 something horsepower. That was why a few people didn't agree that it should be on the list, because in stock form it's actually quite difficult to drift, because obviously it's quite a heavy car as well. I have noticed more and more people developing parts for them and them becoming a bit more popular to drift. Yeah, there's turbo kits and stuff available for them, so if you wanted to push for more power later down the line, there's always that option. And what a lot of people don't realise is these cars actually share a lot of parts with other Toyotas. So a lot of the suspension components are the same as the JZ171 Toyota Crown, which I used to own, which are a very popular drift car in Japan. There are components off other cars that fit this car, so you can buy aftermarket parts for like a Toyota Crown, say, and fit them to a Lexus IS200. And I just think there's actually quite a lot of potential for them if you wanted to develop the car later down the line. And actually there's enough power in it to learn the basics in. So yeah, that's why I picked number 4 as the Lexus IS200. So number 3 on my list is the Mazda MX5. I obviously own one of these cars at the moment, and yeah, either the Mark 1 or the Mark 2 MX5, a great base for a drift car. Obviously, a lot of people will be thinking they've not got a lot of power and they're quite short wheelbase, which makes them a little bit more difficult to drift. And as much as I agree with that to a certain extent, there's increasingly more aftermarket support for these cars when it comes to the drifting side of things. So there's a lot of people now developing lock kits for them. There's always been that abundance of turbo kits and supercharger kits for them. So if you wanted to push for more power, there's always that option later down the line. And obviously they're very, very reliable. The 4-cylinder twin cam engine in them is absolutely bomb-proof. So you can abuse them all day and they don't really care. So yeah. That is why I think the Mazda MX-5 is a great option. I also think that the Mazda RX-8 is a great option. The only reason I didn't pick that car and I picked the MX-5 over it is actually because the RX-8 isn't that great to drift in standard form. A lot of people are starting to drift in the RX-8, but if you notice, most of them swap the engines out. And the reason behind that is the RX-8 is actually mid-engined, and a lot of people don't realise this, is it had almost perfect 50-50 weight distribution because the engine is obviously a very small rotary engine, and it actually sits behind the front axle, so which makes it mid-engine because the weight is behind the front wheels. So it does slide, but it's very difficult to maintain a slide in them because because of the weight distribution is so good. They often try to straighten up. So that is why I picked the MX-5 over the RX-8. But yeah, the RX-8 is also a great option, especially if you want to swap the engine out for later down the line for something a bit bigger that throws off the weight distribution a bit, so it makes it a bit easier to slide. But yeah, number 3 on my list is the Mazda MX-5. So number 2 on my list is the Volvo 740 or 940 Turbo. They obviously came with Volvo's famously strong 2.3 turbo rev block engine in them, which was very, very strong, basically because it had a steel block and it was just built to take as much boost as you want to chuck at it, basically. And they just produce an amazing amount of power for a very crude and basic engine design. Let's be honest, they look awesome. It's a big old brick on wheels, and because they've got so much weight hanging over the back of the axle, they're quite easy to slide and keep there. So yeah, that is why I've picked the Volvo 740 or 940 Turbo as my number 2 choice. So number 1 on my list is probably the most obvious choice out of all of them. And if you've ever been drifting anywhere or you've ever been to watch drifting, you will have seen absolutely loads of these things. And it is basically just because of the weapon of choice. If you want a cheap drift car, this is a car to get. And it is an E36 or an E46 3 Series BMW. The weapon of choice for a reason. They're cheap and they have plenty of power out of the box. You don't really have to do much with them to start drifting in them. They're a great car to learn in. and because they're not very valuable, you can just chuck them about and yeah, get to learn the basics in them. It's, a lot of people that drift professionally usually have one of these as a practice car, and it's because they're just so cheap and easy, and you can chuck them about and learn and get loads of practice in them, and it's not as precious as your main drift car, like your S-body or whatever else you're driving. So that is why I have picked the BMW E36 or E46 as my number one choice. Also, the 5 Series is another great option. Similar kind of car, but longer chassis. So yeah, the 5 Series is also a great option if you want to go for a 5 Series instead. So yeah, that's my 5 drift cars for under £2,000. If there's anything that you think should have made the list, let me know below. There is another option out there if you want to put a bit more time and effort into it, and that is by converting a 4-wheel drive car to rear-wheel drive, which sounds like a big job, but it's actually not that difficult. It is basically a case of taking the front drive shafts out and blocking them off. I actually bought a car that started life as a 4-wheel drive and had been converted to rear-wheel drive, and it was a Honda Shuttle 4-wheel drive. You've probably never heard of one, and it's probably the last car you would have expected to be converted to a drift car, but I bought it off a company called Kinzuru, who make body kits for drift cars, and I think they were a sponsor of like BDC for a while. But yeah, I bought the car off them, and it had been converted to rear-wheel drive. It had a welded diff in it, and it drifted pretty well. The wheelbase was a bit short, so it was quite hard to keep in a drift, but it wasn't that bad. But it's yeah, converting a 4-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive car, it opens up a lot more options. A lot of people convert the Subaru Imprezas to rear-wheel drive, and obviously you will have seen on like Tokyo Drift, they drifts in the Evo, which is obviously what they did with that as well. But yeah, you can always buy like something cheap like a Impreza Turbo 2000 and yeah, convert it to rear-wheel drive, and you've got a pretty decent drift car then, because you've got a turbocharged engine and rear-wheel drive. So that's another option out there if you want to go down that route. But yeah, let me know if there's anything you think I should have mentioned in the list. It'd be really cool to see your thoughts. Obviously, I'm basing this off the UK, so in America and different parts of Europe, it'll be slightly different because varying prices and available cars. But yeah, regardless of where you're from, let me know what you would pick if you had £2,000 to spend on a drift car. Drop in the comments down below. If you could share the video on Facebook or social media, Twitter or whatever you're on, that really help the channel out. It helps the video reach more people, and if you leave a like, that also helps too. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you do that and subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace out.